Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ready? Welcome to day 10 of the 30-day Black History teaching sessions brought to you by Rise United University and myself, Net Shitep Ma'at, otherwise known as Coach Titus. How you doing today, everybody? Today we are going to talk about Atlantis. Atlantis explained the Younger Dryas civilization before the cataclysm. Okay? Plato gives an account of this, which he got from Egyptian priests, right? So that went from Egypt to Timaeus, Tisaeus, and who else? What was the chain? The chain, yeah, Critias, Plato's grandfather. Then it went to Solon, the Athenian lawmaker, visited Egypt in 600 BCE. Solon's source, Egyptian priest at Sais temple in Nile Delta. So the chain is Egyptian priest, 1200 plus year old oral tradition, Solon, 600 BCE, Critias family passed down to Plato. He writes it in 360 BCE. The timeline Plato gives, a direct quote, for these histories tell of a mighty power which unprovoked made an expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia, and to which your city put an end. This power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean, for in those days the Atlantic was navigable, and there was an island situated in front of the straits, which are by you called the Pillars of Hercules. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, but afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. The date given 9,000 years before Solon's visit to Egypt. The math, Solon in Egypt, 600 BCE, 9,000 years before, 9600 BCE. 9600 BCE equals 11,600 before present calibrated. Younger Dryas ended 11,600 BP. Plato's date equals Younger Dryas end date. Exact match. Now, normally I wouldn't like to use Greek philosophers to claim a point, but this point is so exactly bang on, I have to honor the truth of it. I must. That is what we're about here. Okay? What Atlantis looked like in Plato's description: concentric rings, 3 rings of water, 2 rings of land, bridges connecting rings, canal to the sea. The technology: advanced metallurgy, gold, silver, copper, tin, orichalcum, orichalcum, copper alloy, which gleam like fire. Hot and cold springs, geothermal, volcanic island. Irrigation systems, canals, aqueducts, naval power, triremes, advanced ships, architecture, stone buildings, red, white, black stone from the island quarries to knowledge, astronomy, mathematics, navigation, and agriculture. The destruction, violent earthquakes and floods in a single day and night. The island disappeared into the depths of the sea. Yikes! Mainstream says Plato invented Atlantis as a philosophical allegory. Lie. No archaeological evidence exists. Lie. Probably inspired by Minoan civilization, Santorini eruption in 1600 BCE. Fun myth, no history. Problems with this dismissal? Plato explicitly says this is not allegory. Direct statement. This tale, though strange, is certainly true. Present, it is an Egyptian historical record, not philosophical invention. Problem two. Problem two. The date. The date. If allegory based on Santorini in 1600 BCE, why set it at 9,000 years early, 11,600 BP? That's incredibly specific for a made up story. Problem three, the geological details, violent earthquakes and floods in a single day and night. That's exactly what Younger Dryas evidence shows. Impact event, rapid climate shift, flooding. How would Plato know this in 360 BCE? Are you with me now? The Younger Dryas Atlantis destruction documented. The Younger Dryas boundary, cosmic impact, airburst, evidence, nano diamonds, PNAS 2009, platinum anomaly, Journal of Geology 2018, melt glass, shocked quartz, global distribution, 50 plus sites, 4 continents, 12,800 to 11,600 BP, the climate collapse. Temperature drops 10 to 15 degrees Celsius within decades. Ice sheets re-advance, sea level changes, fluctuations during period. Duration 1,200 years, the blackout. 11,600 BP, the abrupt end. Younger Dryas ends rapidly within decades. Temperature rises 10 degrees Celsius in 50 years. Massive meltwater pulse, ice sheets collapse, sea level rise 60 plus meters over centuries, meltwater pulse, and coastal flooding, catastrophic, global. Plato's single day and night of earthquakes and floods, impact event equals earthquakes, crustal disruption, meltwater pulse, floods, sea level rise, single day and night equals catastrophically rapid, geologically rapid. The megafaunal extension, what died? North America, 35 to 45 large mammals, genera extinct. Mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed tigers, not says saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, short-faced bears, American horses, camels, giant beavers. No, don't say short-faced bears. Are you kidding? Global pattern, less severe in Africa and Eurasia, where animals co-evolved with the humans. When? 12,800 to 11,600. Younger Dryas period. Faith and Sorvel, synchronous extinction, North America's Pleistocene mammals. I call them Pleistocene, they call them Pleistocene. Implication: if megafauna couldn't survive the catastrophe, human population suffered massive mortality too. Faux shout. Then we got the sea level rise, meltwater pulse. Sea level rise, 60 to 120 meters total, several centuries post Younger Dryas, it's up to 4 meters per century, some periods faster, documented in coral reef data, oxygen isotope records. What this drowns. Before 11,600 BP, coastlines were 60 to 120 meters lower. Entire continental shelves were exposed land. Major river deltas extended hundreds of kilometers further. Islands were larger or connected to continents. Southeast Asia, sun to south, equals massive land area now underwater. North America, Beringia land bridge, extended Gulf Coast, Atlantic shelf. Mediterranean, different sea level, different coastlines. After 11,600 BP, all coastal settlements drown. Any island civilization now underwater. Survivors equals those at elevation. Plato, the island of Atlantis disappeared in the depths of the sea. Geology, 60 to 220 meter sea level. Rise, drowned coastal areas globally. Exact match. So, play. I'll tell you that right now. The population collapse, Younger Dryas global population estimates 5 to 10 million globally, conservative, Americas 2 to 3 million, possibly higher. Post Younger Dryas estimates 1 to 2 million globally, Americas 200 to 500,000 people, 85 to 90% mortality rate. Archaeological evidence, Clovis culture, 12,800 BP. North America ends abruptly. Settlement gap in many regions, 12,800 to 11,000 pp. Population recovery slow, takes millennia. The civilization that existed, their pre-Younger Dryas evidence. This is what has been hidden. Right, so we have section 3. So we have Cerruti, California, 130,700 years. Cerruti Mastodon. The White Sands, New Mexico, 23,000. Bluefish Caves, 24,000. Mount Verde, Chile, 18,500 BP. And Pedra Furada, Brazil, 50,000 BP. Okay, melanated populations present in the Americans tens of thousands of years before the Younger Dryas, like a long time. A long time. Copper use, pre-1200, 12,800. Shanidar Cave, Iraq. Kayonu, Turkey, 10,000 to 9,500 BP. Copper working confirmed before Younger Dryas. Plato describes Atlantis as having advanced copper metallurgy. Match. Another match. 3 coincidences. Funny how that works. Architectural astronomy, pre-1200 BP, 12,800 BP. Site, Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, 11,600 to 9,600 BP. Poverty Point, Louisiana, 3,700 BP. Post Younger Dryas. Göbekli Tepe, specifically built immediately after the Younger Dryas 11,600 BP start, demonstrates knowledge survived the catastrophe. T-shaped pillars arranged in circles, astronomical alignments confirmed. This is post-catastrophe rebuilding of pre-catastrophe knowledge, meaning that they wouldn't have been able to build it had they not known that that technology was there already. It was already there. They were just kind of turning it back on, right? The knowledge that survived. What came through the Younger Dryas? Sacred geometry, phi ratio, 1.618 of pairs, Egyptian pyramids, Greek pantheons, poverty point, Gothic cathedrals, Moorish architecture. So Gothic cathedrals, those are Moorish, okay? Same signature. They can't lie to us anymore. Renaissance, Beaux Arts, whatever they want to name it, they're Moorish. The science and the technology behind it is Moorish, right? Anytime you build make a building with resonance that you feel viscerally, that is Moorish technology. So anytime you see those big arches, anytime you see the building to golden ratio, Moorish. Okay, that all came from the Moors. All those chapels, all those castles, all of them, all of them, all of them, Moorish. Okay, just so y'all know. All right. Anyway, sacred geometry, phi ratio. This ratio didn't emerge independently everywhere. This is transmitted knowledge, like I was stating, astronomical precision. Precession of the equinoxes, 26,000 year cycle, encoded in Egyptian dendar, the zodiac, Mayan long count, and Hindu yugas, Göbekli Tepe alignments. This requires continuous observation across millennia, or transmission from a civilization that already observed it. Copper metallurgy, Shanidar, 15,000 BP, Kaonu, 10,000 BP, Old Copper Complex, 7,500 BP, Bronze Age, 5,000 BP. Continuous knowledge chain through the catastrophe. Okay, mound building, Watson Break, 5,400 BP, Poverty Point, 3,700 BP, Hopewell, 2,200 BP, Cahokia, 1,000 BP. Continuous tradition for 5,000 plus years, rebuilding what was destroyed. The oral traditions, 270 plus flood stories, 270 plus flood stories globally. Mesopotamia, Epic of Gilgamesh, Flood Survivor, Upnafishtim, Biblical, Noah's Ark, Hindu, Manu and the Flood, Greek, Decalon, Deucalion, and Priya, Chinese, Gunyu, Flood Myth, Hopi, Emergence from Third World, Flood Destroyed, Aztec, Four Previous Worlds, Fourth Destroyed by Flood, Aboriginal Australia, Dreamtime Flood Stories, all describe catastrophic flood and few survivors. The pattern, every major culture has flood memory. Dating, when analyzed, centers around 10,000 to 12,000 BP. Dating when analyzed, okay? Younger Dryas, Mount Water Pulse equals the flood they all remember. What Atlantis actually was. Atlantis was not one island. It was the entire pre-Younger Dryas global civilization. It wasn't regional, global. The characteristics Plato describes: advanced metallurgy, copper, documented 15,000 BP, geometric architecture, sacred geometry, global. Astronomical knowledge, Göbekli Tepe, global alignments. Naval power, Atlantic crossings documented. Tetraploid cotton, cocaine in the mummies, concentric ring cities, poverty point, concentric ridges, geoglyphs, geometric global pattern, catastrophic disruption. Younger Dryas, impact, meltwater pulse, date 11,600 BP, exact Younger Dryas, and Plato's Egyptian source was describing the global Kemetic Moorish civilization that existed before 12,800 BP, was devastated by the catastrophe, partially survived, and rebuilt over the next 1,000 years into the civilizations we see at European contact. So, what Plato's Egyptian source was describing, the global Kemetic Moorish civilization that existed before 12,800 BP, devastated by a catastrophe, partially survived and rebuilt over the next 10,000 years into the civilizations we see at European contact. Once again, Section 4, the suppression. Why mainstream denies it. If Atlantis is real, pre-Younger Dryas global civilization, the implication, indigenous peoples globally, descendants of advanced pre-catastrophe civilization, not primitive. Right? So like that same black folks. You was here first. Okay. I mean, it's just a state of fact, right? It's not really like, it's not a racism thing. It's just a state of fact. Implication 2, European discovery equals encountering survivors, descendants of older civilization, not encountering a new world. Implication 3, colonial land claims rest on fraudulent premise, terra nullius, invalid if advanced civilizations existed. Implication 4, reparations owed for destruction of civilization that was already rebuilding from catastrophe. Double victimization. Yikes. The suppression is structural. Acknowledging pre Younger Dryas civilizations equals acknowledging indigenous sovereignty. How they suppress it? Method 1, dismiss Plato as allegory. He made it up for philosophy. The counter is Plato says it's historical. Date matches geologically exactly. Okay? It's geologically exact. He called it. Don't know how, but he called it. He got it from the Egyptians. He called it method 2, separate the evidence. They keep geologists from talking to archaeologists, keep archaeologists from talking to oral tradition scholars, each piece dismissed in isolation, never allowed to connect, like I'm doing it. Method 3, label alternative interpretations as fringe. Atlantis, pseudoscience. I love that one. Counter, Younger Dryas equals mainstream science. Pre-Clovis equals mainstream accepted only connection labeled fringe. Method 4, destroy or suppress physical evidence. This is a good one. Lozia skulls burned 2018. All kinds. So the administrative building for the Luzia skulls, the other skulls they found in Brazil, all this stuff they found in Brazil burned. 2018 mounds bulldozed, pre-Clovis sites disputed for decades before acceptance. Pattern of evidence destruction. That's what they do, man. They destroy evidence, man. They just destroy it. The academic fear, Graham Hancock experience. A journalist, researcher, wrote Fingerprints of the Gods, argued advanced pre-Younger Dryas civilization. Academic response, vicious attacks, labeled pseudoscience. His evidence, astronomical alignments, flood myths, geological data. His error, didn't have the complete framework, didn't connect to indigenous sovereignty, didn't have the Younger Dryas be impact confirmed science, didn't have Washita oral tradition, but he was right about the core claim. Pre-Younger Dryas, advanced civilization existed. Why was he attacked? Because if he's right, the entire academic framework of human prehistory collapses. And with it, the legal frameworks justifying colonial land claims. Wonder why they're calling it pseudo. Section 5. Here we go. So, Section 5 equals Kemetic Moorish Global Network. The evidence synthesis. What we know now from days 1 to 9 today, 315,000 BP Kemetic Moorish origins, 130,700 America's presence, Saruti Macedon, Kemetic Moorish Atlantic crossing, most likely. Brazil presence, Pedra Ferrata, melanated populations, 23,000 BP, widespread America's presence, white sands, active thriving populations, 15,000 BP, copper metallurgy, Shanidar Cave, advanced knowledge, 13,000, pre-catastrophe populations across Americas, Africa, Europe, Asia, melanid Kemetic Moorish knowledge systems, 12,800 BP, Younger Dryas impact, catastrophe, 12,800 to 11,600. We have population collapse, knowledge preservation by survivors, 11,600 BP, meltwater pulse, coastal drowning, Atlantis sinks. It sinks. 11,600 BP. Rebuilding, Göbekli Tepe, 11,600 BP. Watson break, 5,400. Copper working resumes, and mound building, global recovery imminent. This is Atlantis, not one island. A global civilization destroyed by documented catastrophe at the exact date Plato gave. Whose survivors are the indigenous peoples of every continent. That's you, yo. I've been saying that to a lot of people for over the years, but I didn't have this kind of information until now. But I knew that I was right. So, yow. Okay, that was us. Okay. Okay. The concentric rings explained. Plato's description, alternating rings of land and water. Grid truth, concentric rings equals electromagnetic field pattern. Every node on the electromagnetic grid generates concentric field pattern, like ripples in water. Examples of concentric ring architecture globally: Poverty Point, Göbekli Tepe, Stonehenge, Amazon geoglyphs, and Senegambia stone circles in West Africa. So we have Louisiana, Turkey, England, Brazil, West Africa. Globally, the pattern is global. Concentric rings equals electromagnetic field geometry made physical. Plato's Atlantis description equals template for electromagnetic node architecture, not one specific island. The design principle used globally. Globally. Calcium equals copper alloy. Plato describes calcium, the metal that gleam like fire, second only to gold in value, mined from Earth and Atlantis, used to plate buildings. What is orichalcum? Mainstream, unknown, possibly mythical, maybe brass or bronze. The grid truth, orichalcum, high copper alloy with specific electromagnetic properties. No doubt. Candidates, guanin, 84%, copper, 8%, and 8% silver. So it's 8% copper, 8% silver, 8% gold. Found in the Caribbean and West Africa. Identical composition. How'd that happen? Tumbaga, copper, gold, ally, South America. High copper bronze, copper tin with gold traces. Why it gleamed like fire. High copper content equals reddish gold color. Polished copper alloy equals mirror-like reflective. Firelight, unpolished copper equals gleams like fire. Accurate description, why it was valuable. Maximum electromagnetic conductivity, copper base, aesthetic, beauty, gold, color, durability, alloy stronger than pure copper. Plato's orichalcum, the guanin alloy documented in Americas and West Africa. Atlantic Bridge confirmed. 5D, the Egyptian source. Makes sense. Why would Egyptian priests know about Atlantis? Because Egypt, surviving node of the pre-Younger Dryas global civilization. Egyptian knowledge, astronomical precision. Great Pyramid aligns to the true north within 0.05 degrees. Sacred geometry, phi ratio throughout. Copper metallurgy, Egypt equals major copper producer. Sinai mines. Hieroglyphic records dating back about 1,000 plus years, oral tradition extending back further. Egyptian priests at Sais told Solon, "You Greeks are like children. You have no ancient history because catastrophes destroyed your records. We in Egypt preserve the memory. They are telling the truth. Egypt survived the Younger Dryas, preserved the knowledge, and told Solon about the pre catastrophe global civilization, which Plato called Atlantis. Legal implications: if Atlantis is pre Younger Dryas global civilization, then indigenous peoples equals descendants of an advanced global civilization. Younger Kemetic Moorish autochthons are descendants of an advanced global civilization. Not primitive tribes, not Stone Age people, not pre agricultural wanderers, but survivors of a 12,800 BP catastrophe, rebuilders of pre catastrophe knowledge, and maintainers of 11,600 year reconstruction project. That's That's right. Colonial legal framework collapses. Terra nullius, empty land or land without people applied to the Americas, Australia, and parts of Africa. Justification: no civilization, therefore no sovereignty. If pre-Younger Dryas civilization existed, land was never empty. It was occupied 130,700 years in America. Civilization existed. Atlantean equals pre-Younger Dryas global network. Catastrophe reduced but didn't eliminate populations. Colonial powers asserted post-catastrophe state as if it was in the original state. Fraudulent baseline already established. Doctrine of discovery. Vatican repudiated. 2023. If Atlantis is real, Christian legal framework claiming authority to discovered lands, claiming authority over survivors of older, more advanced civilization. The absurdity becomes obvious. It is truly absurd. Reparation scale changes. Standard reparations argument. Slavery 1619 to 1863, 246 years in British North America. Land theft 1492 and onwards, 532 years of land theft. Atlantis framework argument. Civilization building 130,700 years ago, 11 and to 12,800 BP. 117,900 years. Catastrophe 12,800 BP. 85 to 90 mortality not caused by survivors. Rebuilding 11,600 BP to 1492, 11,600 years. Second catastrophe 1492 to the 1600s. European disease conquest, another 90% mortality. Colonial occupation 1492 to present times. Yep, that's right. We are owed for the destruction of 11,600 year rebuilding project. Theft of 130,700 year territorial claim. Suppression of knowledge systems that survived 12,800 BP catastrophe. Two civilization destructions of the same continuous people. The scale is incalculable. Why now? The evidence finally assembled. What had to happen for Atlantis truth to emerge? Younger Dryas impact confirmed 12,700 to 2018. PNAS, Journal of Geology, pre-Clovis accepted. White Sands in Science. LIDAR reveals Amazon civilization 2017 to 2022. Vatican repudiates doctrine of discovery 2023. Hopewell and Esco inscription 2023, all within the last 5 to 15 years. Before this, arguments had gaps. After 2023, argument is complete. So let me go back. Having a look at the global signature of the concentric ring. It's Poverty Point, Louisiana, Quebec with Tepe, Turkey, and Senegambia stone circles. Look at that. All right. Plato described Atlantis as alternating rings of water and land. This is the geometry of electromagnetic fields. This architectural footprint appears globally post-catastrophe 11,600 BP onwards. It is the signature of a shared pre-dispersal technology. It was there already, long time, long time, okay? Pay attention. And the evidence, 270 witnesses to the meltwater pulse. These are not allegories. They are survivor testimony. Every major culture possesses a great flood story. When analyzed, these stories center around the 10,000 to 12,000 BP window. Indigenous oral traditions preserve the memory of the Younger Dryas meltwater pulse that science is only now confirming. So again, we go over the structural suppression of history, the colonial narrative, dismissal, labeling Plato's history as allegory when he said it was not. And his stuff matches up. Like, I mean, I didn't expect it would because he said he was a Greek historian. He stole a lot of his information from Egypt and didn't give them the credit for it as much as he should have. And they dismissed him. But he was actually right on this one. All of those things that he said matched up. The separation, isolating geology from archaeology. They didn't put them together. They didn't understand what it meant. The destruction, bulldozing mounds, and burning artifacts like the Zia skull in the museum fire in Brazil that pretty much destroyed everything. Some of the, I think Luzia's skull was partially reconstructed. Like, you can't make this shit up, man. Like, they burnt the one thing that connected Americas to Africa and melanated Moorish people to the Americas a long time ago. It showed it through Brazil, and they destroyed all that evidence. How coincidental is that? Again, the empty land that they speak about, the collapse of terra nullius, the lie. Terra nullius means empty land, justified colonization by claiming the land was unoccupied. The truth, the land was occupied for 130,000 years by a civilization rebuilding from extinction. The verdict, the discovery is impossible when the land is occupied by survivors. The Vatican's repudiation of the doctrine of discovery signals the end of this legal framework. The time has come. Got to give up the lie. So, it is not just 500 years of occupation, it is the disruption of 11,600 year reconstruction project following a near extinction event. Do you hear me now? Right? 11,600 years of recovery. Second catastrophe is colonialism. Damn, colonization. So, why now? Why are we talking about this now? Right? Is the timing. The evidence has finally assembled. What had to happen for Atlantis truth to emerge? The Younger Dryas impact confirmed 2007 to 2018 PNAS Journal of Geology. Pre-Clovis accepted 2021 White Sands in Science. Now, White Sands, that really shouldn't blow it all up. It really shouldn't be the White Sands that's destroying their academia. What should really be destroying it is the mounds and how many mounds are found in America. Like, oh my God. Over 10,000, figures of 100,000. We are going to talk about the Washita for day 11 because it is very important to speak about the people that lived on this land prior. Okay, we're going to talk about them a little bit more, and we're going to talk about their connection to the rest of the grid. Okay? Anyway, we can talk about it now because pre-Clovis is accepted. Lidar reveals Amazon civilization 2017 to 2022 in the Nature magazine. Vatican repudiates the doctrine of discovery. Hopewell UNESCO inscriptions 2023, all within the last 5 to 15 years. Before this, argument had gaps. After 2023, argument is complete. The timing is not coincidental. 11,600 years of rebuilding, and now the evidence is finally assembled. The technology exists to share it globally. The legal framework is mature enough to support the claim, and the consciousness is ready to receive it. And someone with the right lineage, knowledge, and courage is here to articulate it. There's not a coincidence. This is no coincidence. That's completion of the 11,600 year project. So, was Atlantis real? Yes, but not the way you were told to imagine it. Atlantis wasn't one magical island. Atlantis was the name Plato gave to the pre-Younger Dryas Global Kemetic Moorish civilization. The civilization that worked copper, 15,000 years, built with sacred geometry, navigated the Atlantic, encoded astronomical knowledge, was destroyed by catastrophic flood and earthquake at exactly 11,600 BP, thanks Plato, and whose survivors rebuilt for 11,600 years, whose descendants are Kemetic Moorish autochthons globally. The evidence has always been there, folks, in the geology, in the mounds, in the DNA, and in the oral traditions, in the buildings, in Plato's texts. We just weren't allowed to connect it until now. Atlantis isn't lost. Atlantis is standing right here in the Washita, in the mound builders, in every Moorish, Kemetic, autochthon person carrying the lineage, the survivors of the greatest catastrophe in human history, who rebuilt, who preserved, who never forgot, and are finally being heard. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to day 10 of the 30-day Black History teaching and lessons from Rise United University and myself, the host, Net Shetep Ma'at, also known as Coach Titus. Great to have you again. Day 11 tomorrow. Look out for this one. It's going to be a hot one as usual. This information, again, if you have questions, please put them in the comments or send me a DM and let me know what you think. I got some people cracking on me, but that's all right. They're going to see how dope this information is when it finally does come out. And like all early scholars of these type of things, we may have to take some hits, but we're not care because we know say we are lying at the truth. Okay? So you can't talk to us. We lying the truth, man. All right? There's others like me too, so don't worry. But I'm not sure if they have the keys. I got the keys. I'm gonna turn that key in the lock and unlock your mind. See you tomorrow, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. Love, peace, and hair grease. Take care.